What if I told you that arguably the best preserved ancient Greek temples, ruins, and even cities in the world are not in Greece, but they are in Italy? Because thousands of years ago, ancient Greeks didn't just visit southern Italy. They colonized it and it became part of their world, calling it Magna Graecia, literally translating to Greater Greece. And the influence went far beyond building thriving cities. They brought a language still spoken today in many parts of Italy. They brought their gods and customs and food and greatly influenced the Roman Empire, influence reaching all the way to modern Italy today. So by the end of this video, you're going to see southern Italy into a completely different light. Hello again and welcome if you're new here. On this channel we are uncovering everything related to Italy, history, culture and living in this country. And in this video we are exploring one fascinating chapter of the ancient world and of this country. We'll explore the Greek colonies of southern Italy and Sicily and the legacy they left behind, by looking at who the colonists were, what they built and how their culture shaped the history of the region. More importantly, we'll take a look at what you can still see and experience today, if you know where to look, and all you have to do is go back in time, about 2,800 years. In the period between the 8th and 6th centuries BC, mainland Greece was booming and was going through a period of cultural progression, population boom, and the rise of city-states and the establishment of political structures, like democracies and oligarchies. This period is referred to in history as the Archaic period, and it was transformational for Greeks. But it also brought forward issues like political conflict, fierce competition between the city-states, limited housing due to population growth, and a limited supply of food due to the nature of the terrain of the peninsula. However, the same geography included the Mediterranean Sea, literally a highway for the Greeks, skilled in sailing and curious by nature, to explore, colonize, and look outwards at new opportunities. Moving in all directions, they founded cities from the Black Sea to modern-day Spain. But the most fertile and promising regions they found were in the south of Italy and on the island of Sicily. Corinth, Sparta, and Athens were leading the expansion efforts of the Greeks, sending groups of settlers to establish homes away from home. Cities in foreign lands that included temples, theaters, marketplaces, and thousands of citizens. These cities were so successful that they stretched along what is now Calabria, Basilicata, Campania, Puglia, and all of Sicily. And by the 5th century BC, some of them were richer and stronger than the Greek cities that founded them. Syracuse, on the island of Sicily, for example, grew to be the largest city of the Greek world, bigger even than Athens in terms of population, wealth, and military might. It was described by Cicero as the greatest Greek city and the most beautiful of them all, and was also the birthplace of Archimedes and home to the philosopher Plato. The walls of Syracuse were said to be 3 times longer than the ones of Athens, and within those walls one could find the temple of Apollo, Athena, and Zeus, Greek theater, and the altar of Hieron II, a massive altar built for public sacrifices. Agrigento, Taranto, Messina, Croton, Naples, and Rhegion were all Greek colonies on the Italian mainland and islands, which were not just flourishing but were trading between each other and with Greece, exerting significant control over the Mediterranean and culturally influencing the region. That was so great that the area was considered Magna Graecia, or Greater Greece, and played a pivotal role in transmitting the culture of ancient Greece to the Roman world. One could even argue that the Roman Empire was a mix of military might and Greek and Etruscan culture. Traditions, ancestry, and the dialect of Greek language, called Griko, survive even today in southern Italy. The influence wasn't just buildings and famous names. It was deeper and was mixed into the fabric of southern Italy, so much so that most of it can still be found there now. One clear example of influence lingering to this day is the architecture and urban planning the Greeks brought with them, a sophisticated way of designing cities by laying streets into grids and creating public spaces called the agora. They were the center of civic life. Theaters were carved into hillsides and temples were placed on elevated ground to dominate the skyline, a logic that can be noticed in many Italian towns today. Churches took the place of temples and the layout of the streets remained the same, literally a bridge from the Hellenic roots of those communities to their Italian current form. Religion wasn't erased either when the Romans took control of the peninsula. Instead, it was adapted and spread throughout the empire. The god Zeus became Jupiter, Hera became Juno, Athena became Minerva, and so on. Worshipping the same gods with new names continued in many of the sacred Greek temples, and new ones were built throughout the empire, and early Christians used the same locations to build churches and shrines that are still in place after centuries. And then there is the Italiote Greek spoken in southern Italy, endangered minority languages that mix medieval Byzantine Greek with ancient Greek roots and Italian language influence. There is Griko, mainly spoken in the Grecia Salentina area of Lecce, and Greco, used mainly in parts of Calabria. These languages survived for nearly 3000 years and are considered living fossils by historians and language experts, a direct connection from the present to the ancient world and the language spoken in Magna Graecia. Not surprisingly, food is another gift from ancient Greece that was passed down to Italians. Arguably, Italian cuisine would not exist today without the knowledge received centuries ago from the Greeks. In a way, that is the longest lasting legacy of their influence on the peninsula. First of all, olive cultivation and olive oil production was introduced on a somewhat industrial scale in the south. So much so that arguably, the same way today the economy is structured around petroleum, back in the day the Roman Empire was fueled by olive oil. It was used for food and it was also an energy source. Italy is the world's second largest olive oil producer, and it plays a central role in the economy of the country as well as in Italian cuisine. Another legacy tracing back to the Greeks is the sophisticated viticulture and wine-making technique. The Romans sometimes refer to the south of the country as the land of wine, and to this day, Italy is the largest producer of wine globally. That is truly impressive. Two major skills introduced by the Greeks developed over time to become major Italian industries on a global scale today. They brought bread-making traditions, fishing techniques, and the culture of eating that placed food at the center of community life. Sounds familiar? That's because the food culture we associate with southern Italy today, the olive oil, the wine, the fresh fish, the communal table, has roots that go back directly to the ancient Greeks. So what can you visit today that is still there? The good news is, southern Italy is full of extraordinary sights that most tourists completely overlook because they head straight to Rome, Florence, or the Amalfi Coast. That means less crowds, more atmosphere, and an experience that feels genuinely off the beaten path. The first on the list would be the Valley of Temples in Sicily, consisting of 7 Greek temples spread across a ridge and overlooking the sea. A World Heritage Site and one of the most spectacular archaeological landscapes on Earth. There are also the temples in Paestum in Campania, unmissable at sunset or sunrise, which include Greek artifacts and the famous Tomb of the Diver, a rare example of Greek painting. Syracuse is still there today, an ancient Greek city, as well as Metaponto in Basilicata, where the famous Pythagoras spent his final years. The National Archaeological Museum of Naples and Taranto include Greco-Roman art and jewelry, ceramics and bronze, pieces from Magna Graecia if you want to dwell even deeper into the history, and are absolutely worth visiting. When most people think of ancient Greeks, they picture the Pantheon in Athens or the ruins of Olympia. But the story of Greece is so much bigger than that, and is deeply linked to Italy. For nearly 1000 years, Magna Graecia was a living, breathing extension of the Greek world, right here in Italy. It produced philosophers, mathematicians, athletes, and artists. It shaped Roman civilization, and through Rome, it shaped us. So the next time you eat a plate of pasta drizzled with olive oil, drink a glass of southern Italian wine, or look at the columns of a church in Naples, you're looking at something that has its roots, in part, in those Greek settlers that crossed the sea 2800 years ago. If this video made you look at Italy a little differently, give it a like. It really helps the channel grow, and I love to hear from you. If you could visit one place we talked about today, which one would it be? Drop it in the comments below, and until next time, ciao!